Hi Jamie, hi Julie. Thank you so much for welcoming us to this incredible show. Can you talk a little bit about the types of art that people are going to see, because it goes across a lot of different mediums, right?
Yeah, I think sound installation, vinyl in situ work, as we see here, Thema Egeris's work, which is a contact mic behind the hide, and it acts as a big drum in the space. So, and we have film, paintings, tattoo, beading,
stop motion, watercolor to like traditional painting, sculpture installation, some new media.
Light installation.
So you're both Indigenous curators. Can you break down why that is an important thing for people to think about when you're having an exhibition celebrating and exploring Indigenous art?
I think, well, I come from a Anishinaabe, Ojibwe background. From my mom's side, Territory 1 from Saugeen First Nation, and my father's side is of British heritage.
And so on my mom's side is Anishinaabe, Métis, and my dad's side is Syrian and German. And so for me, I think a lot about the inspiration and the future generations that will come after us, and why it's important that it's our voice and our self-determining acts as curators, but even in the larger indigenization of this institution, of why we want to focus and make Winnipeg the epicenter of Indigenous contemporary arts.
In really having a perspective or a filter of Indigenous background for curating is to also think about that history of how Indigenous art has been misrepresented or not at all. We also stand on the shoulders of many artists and curators of Indigenous heritage working before us and really creating a space for us in these institutions now. And I know that took a long time to do that.
Yeah, and it's still something currently we're battling in Canadian museums and galleries today.
You said that you hope that this exhibition shifts the way that we think about Canada. What is the shift that you're hoping for?
You know, just in terms of arts and thinking about contemporary arts, that it may be Indigenous, but is most certainly contemporary art first and foremost. The work that they're making is talking about the importance of Indigenous and settler relations, Indigenous histories, but also the presence of the art being really relevant.
I also would add that there's a societal shift. We need that to happen, and that needs to happen with Indigenous people, newcomers, refugees, settlers, everybody that is thinking about this relationship to this specific place, how they've come here, how they want to relate to it, how institutions perpetuate certain narratives or don't, what kind of histories are being told. And so I think, outside of also to include what Jamie's saying, but to think also more broadly of that kind of, master narrative that we want to kind of unpack or break away from.
I think having the inclusion of language within the show has been an important teaching tool, and I think schools have really appreciated just knowing the histories behind that.
So we just came out of Canada 150. Reconciliation is a term we keep hearing, but there's also an incredible amount of rage across the country from the verdicts that just came in the cases of Tina Fontaine and the murder of Colton Boucher. Can you talk about what the significance is of having this exhibition in this moment, right now, in this context?
When we first opened in September, I was like so optimistic and full of hope and excitement. And, not to just echo what Nigon said in the press, but it feels a little bit hopeless with those two verdicts. And as a very optimistic, excitable person, it feels weird to feel that feeling. But right now, I think that we could, as a nation, we could decide to do two things. We could continue the kind of path that we have done in those historical moments, which is to basically ignore it or shut it down or push it aside and then keep going in a very colonial trajectory, or we can take responsibility for it, we can change it, and we can move forward and build a new way of doing things and a new way of relationships. And I think my hope anyways is that this exhibition and other exhibitions across the country and political movements can do that work. And so it's, you know, that's the moment where I feel a little bit more hopeful, but I'm still a bit sad still, yeah.
I think so too. It's interesting that beginning of the exhibition, we were really talking about this Insurgence, Resurgence standing in tension to the narratives of Canada 150, and in a positive way and in a provocative way, and excited about the work that the artists have done. But I think in talking about reconciliation, it's really on the shelf, and when people talk about Indigenous people having to get over this past, they're really asking them to get over ongoing injustices and ongoing racism. So I still think, though, that this show and the work within it only makes it more stronger and more relevant, and that art can be a voice and can be an outlet and for people to think about these histories and the present and the future through a kind of visual vernacular that is, and I think can be really transformational.
What do you hope that somebody who comes into this exhibit leaves with?
I would be excited for people to leave with this idea that they had some concepts of what they thought contemporary art was, you know, more broadly, and or what Indigenous contemporary art was. Their mind gets blown a little bit, you know, and impact and inspire new generations of artists. So, or even old generations of artists to rethink what they're trying to do.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Timmy Witch,
Thank you.
Marcy, thank you for coming.